so-called flying saucers.
There's a whole fleet of them. Look on the SA. It's rotating.
Welcome to Kill the Stigma. Today we're going to talk about intimidation tactics and why I think we should be careful with not completely ruling out what people say. And the very sensitive nature of, or fine line of their claims, whether that's true or not, is not the point. The point is there somebody intimidating these people? Now, recently, Gary Nolan, actually he said for a while, said he was threatened by somebody in the executive branch. And I kind of see this pattern over and over and over again, and maybe I'm the only one who has some moral obligation of wanting to protect people if they think they're doing something right with important information and getting intimidated. Maybe no one cares, but maybe people are just selfish and they just want what they want. Disclosure, give it to me now. And I don't care about anything else. Just show me the freaking bodies and the UFO. And by the way, when you show it to me, probably not gonna believe you anyway, but maybe I'm the only moral person. I know I'm not, by the way. I know there's a lot of good people out there, but it seems like these toxic voices or whatever, people are loud, they're loud. And I don't wanna, I'm just, man, can you imagine that, like, we're dismissing all these people and they're actually getting intimidated? By whom? And I don't want to be wrong, man, on that side. And I just keep seeing that pattern over and over and over and over again. And it's important to me. I want to know what you guys think about it too. So let's go into some examples of people that have been intimidated, and pretty much all of them have. Let's do that. But before we get to the main stories about people getting intimidated, I'm gonna show you something very important no one talked about, no one understood. And we're gonna go back to 1947.
I've never revealed who that source is.
Yes.
Did you know that?
I know.
Want me to tell you?
What the source?
Yeah.
Okay, who's the source?
So before I say anything on that, let me speak to the question that you asked, right? So you asked me, what's the probability that that is still standing as an idea 12, 13, 14 years later, right? So I continued to work with that source for years afterwards. We talked about this. Look, I mean, his whole family knew it was him. And I knew his family because I was an integral part of, I was at his house, met all his kids, grandkids. And
we should say the source is the main expert advisor behind the story. That it was, maybe you can explain what the story is that you report in the book, that it was a disinformation campaign created by Stalin to cause mass hysteria in the United States.
Yes.
The very kind that we've been speaking about with the CIA and so on.
Yes, predicated on the narrative of the War of the Worlds, right? And the War of the Worlds, when it was a radio program in the United States, made people go crazy. Oh my God, we're being invaded by aliens. Well, the government was always interested in this story, and Joseph Stalin was too. We know that from declassified documents, right? And so the source told me that the reason for this program and that the real Roswell crash remains were, in fact, it was a Black propaganda hoax infiltrated, or rather predicated at this idea that you were going to overwhelm America's early warning air defense system, cause mayhem, and maybe be able to attack the United States. That was the plan. And Stalin was also messing with the United States, messing with Truman, who sort of, turned his back on him, right, at Potsdam. And so this idea and the reason that the source is important, and unlike, a lot of people, I saw this, I saw that, I learned that, was according to the source, once it was determined that this was a hoax and that Stalin was able to get a craft over the United States and it crashed, and it had, people inside of it. They were people that were sort of deformed and meant surgically altered to look like aliens. The United States government decided that it needed to know what on earth that was all about, and if it was possible for us to have the same program. This according to the source, right? And so it sounds preposterous. And if it was just someone saying, you might say, well, it's ridiculous, tell me, and get them onto another subject. But the difference is this source, who is very well placed and friends with all of the other 75 people, told me this as a confession, right? A real tearful confession, because what he said is he was involved in the American program to do the same thing. And people died because there were human experiments that went on. And I write about this in the last 12 pages of Area 51. It was an explosive, revelation. And I felt very confident in writing this because the source wanted it written. Why? Because he said, I'm dedicated to my country. I know about being committed to national security, and this kind of thing must never happen. And if you give people too much power, they will take advantage of it. And he wanted it on the record. And his wife of 60 years did not know until after the book published, nor did his children, okay? So after the book published, I was called to his house and sat there with his family. And they said, tell us this isn't true. And he said, it is true, right? Now that source is Al O'Donnell, who is the nuclear weapons engineer who armed, wired, and fired 186 nuclear weapons. Okay? So if you want to talk about someone, you're the first person I've told that on the record, but it's kind of about time.
Wow.
Wow, indeed. Now, Annie Jacobson talks about the credibility of this man who gave her this information, Alfred O'Donnell, who was with the Manhattan Project and connected to the Department of Energy. And I think that's interesting with this topic personally. And I mean, she apparently went to the family was like, is this true? And crying, and he was crying, and it was all this intense stuff. George Knapp talks about how apparently there was another story to be told, and some almost like Men in Black character showed up to Alfred O'Donnell and told Annie Jacobson to tell the story. Take that with a grain of salt, I don't know. But George Knapp and Bob Lazar is another one who came out with risk, right, for his life. So, I don't know, it's a pattern. And what I want to say is, she was defending Alfred O'Donnell because of the person who he was. Well, if you want to go by people who are educated and with credibility, what about the people that have testified under oath, like David Grush, who was briefing the president and had a very high security clearance? What about Lou Elizondo, who also testified under oath, right? And they've been saying that we've had crashes of UAP, that we've been attempting to reverse engineer this technology, that there's a Cold War, whoever gets this technology first wins, and that there's an intimidation tactic to suppress this information, and they will go as far as it goes. And some of these people that have come public have done it because of that fear of like, something's gonna happen to me and my family if I don't talk about this, so I have to go public. And I wonder how many haven't gone public and, paid the consequences. So it's a very serious topic. And, she also talks about disinformation and psyops. And don't get me wrong, when it comes to Roswell, I know that there's a lot of BS, a lot of stuff that people made up over time, but there's a true story there that I believe that the government has acted very shady about, and I do not think it was Stalin trying to cause mass panic and UFO hysteria over the people and messing with the skies. I know he was messing with Harry Truman, but the Soviet Union, I'm not going to go into a history class, but he did not have the capability to put UFOs, and did not trigger all the UFO mass sightings that happened. And maybe some people were, obviously hoaxing and all, for sure, but there's a core story there. And I'm telling you, this information of people who experienced this, it's not something cool. It's not career enhancing. It does not, it's embarrassing to talk about, honestly. For me, almost like the high strangeness stuff, it's like, I don't know, man. Like, it's not cool. So you got to think, I'm about to show you Kurt McConnell, right? And a bunch of others, and they all have a background that's very serious. So Annie Jacobson has one source. And how many do we have on this topic testifying under oath? Okay, I'm repeating myself now. Let's go. I'm going to show you here. Look, guys, I'm just going to show you a pattern of how this happened with everybody that's came out, pretty much.
I'm going to show you what Dr. Nolan talked about, which I found was extremely concerning, and just gives you a better idea or a better grasp of what is going on and how dangerous this can be, because there's people that mock this. I think that you shouldn't. I think that if somebody with the credentials and the trajectory as Dr. Gary Nolan, a Nobel Prize nominee, one of the world's leading immunologists, when he's talking about this openly and denouncing threats against his life, I think people should pay attention to it and they should take it seriously. It's no joke. So whenever you see one of these trolls or debunkers making fun of something like this, just make sure you let them know that you're calling them out for it, because we can't trivialize stuff like this. This is serious. But I'm going to play you what Dr. Nolan said. Just this clip right here. It's not that long.
Why amnesty is required. I mean, I've said this publicly, so I'll say it again here. I was personally threatened because I knew of a conversation that happened somewhere. And I alluded to it in the most elliptical fashion on a public broadcast. Literally a couple of days later, I get a phone call from a friend saying, XYZ at the White House is really pissed at you, and you should not ever say anything like that again because Title 18 applies. I said, what does that mean? Lethal force is operable. I'm not kidding you.
Oh my God.
I put down the phone and I honestly, I nearly broke down in tears. Mm-hmm. And I called a reporter friend of mine to just basically report it to them, to say, this just happened to me. I was just threatened. Mm-hmm. Because they knew what I was saying. Nobody else would have known what it was what I was alluding to.
Regardless of whether or not it's aliens, if they think you're disclosing their secure information, you might not.
Well,
be
I wasn't
safe.
supposed to know it because I heard it from a friend who wasn't supposed to tell me in the first place. Mm-hmm. But
it's that serious, and we need for people to understand that whenever you're like demanding for evidence and demanding for people to just come clean or to quote unquote take one for the team, you have no fucking idea of what you're talking about.
Now, shout out to Pavel Psicoactivo. He did a whole episode on this. I'm going to link it below because it goes deeper into other people, right, that have suffered from this. And I think it's important. So I wanted to shout out to him. Now, next, I'm going to put Kurt McConnell. So Kurt McConnell was a staffer for Senate Intelligence and obviously focused on national security. These staffers, what they do is basically they protect politicians that they work for from political backlash. Sometimes shady stuff like this topic, they're going to give it to staffers because they don't want to get out in the public and suffer from political careers, unfortunately.
I don't want to give the wrong impression. It's not like there's hordes of these people or
Sure.
dozens even, but there's a handful.
Yep.
And they are very concerned.
They don't feel safe to come out fully, or?
Yes, that's right. It's like they have the sort of the fear of God
Jesus.
in them about the consequences.
Are you aware of people who've died or faced retribution around coming out, or?
Well, I don't think you need to look any further than the case of Dave Grush.
Sure.
I mean, he's not even a what you'd call a firsthand witness or source.
I wish I knew how much Kurt McConnell knows and directly the people involved. But anyway, look how uncomfortable he was. Dude, and this is me, I love reading body language. I think it says a lot more than what your words are. Body language is key. So this person believes for sure he's actually disturbed, very disturbed at what he's talking about. And did someone put the fear of God into them, he says. That sounds kind of intense, yo. Fear of God. Does that sound intense, dude, or what? I'm not gonna, sorry, I apologize. This is serious. It's just that when you say fear of God, that's like, bro, like what? Like, what does that even mean? Because that sounds way more intense than somebody putting a gun in my face right now. Honestly, way, I don't know, man. I don't know, that sounds really intense. So we gotta take, and we got these people, right? These are coming from people that are educated, people that are in places of government. I think we ought to listen. But then there's the problem that the government lied to us for I don't know how long. God knows, almost 100 years, and it's a big problem. It's a big problem, man. It's a big, because that's why there's so much distrust and mistrust, and this is such important, intense information that it's like, bro, you just fucking with me? Whatever, I cursed. Right now, our, what's going on? Show me. But it's not as simple, and it sucks. It sucks so bad. And I'm not about to be here and be patient, but let's have what are the goals that we want as a community is my question, so we can get whatever the information that we want over time. And do we want to roll these people out before they even show us what they got, Anyway, so then now I found this from Leslie Keane and talking about why David Grush had to come out. And I get very frustrated because this guy's from the New York Times or whatever, and they're basically, oh, those conspiracy theorists or whatever, we're stupid, right? But the truth is, there's a lot of conspiracies that are stupid, but this is probably the biggest story of all time. And thank you for doing the New York Times and with 2017, but at the end of the day, you dropped the ball. And I do understand a little bit, just how intense the community is and whatever, their reputation, but no, it's the biggest story of all time. The problem is, back to what I was saying, how are you gonna the New York Times has all this protocols of standards and sources, and people are scared to talk. They're not gonna put their name out there, which brings us to the problem that I'm trying to talk about here. Who? Why? Is it the CIA? Is it the NSA? Or private contractors? Or a mix? Or maybe even a part of non-human intelligence? Who knows?
Why did it end up in the Debrief, which is a less well-known and established publication, which is to take nothing away from them?
The reason it came out in the Debrief, Ezra, was a kind of an odd situation that doesn't usually come up, but Ralph Blumenthal and I were working with a well-known reporter at the Washington Post, and we'd been with him for about a month and a half, and the Post was very interested in the story, and they were spending a lot of time doing background and doing due diligence, as the Post should and does. And also our reporter had other work he had to do at the same time. So it was taking quite a while. And what happened was that Grush's name leaked out. First of all, it leaked that the Washington Post was involved with the story. Then it leaked, his name leaked. And he was starting to get threatening phone calls, and he became, we were worried about his safety, and I think he was too. Because there's a vicious world out there, and he's already had faced retaliations and all kinds of things as a result of coming forward. So it just seemed that we couldn't wait any longer. We'd waited quite a long time already for the Post to do its job, and we totally respect their need to do that. But it just became this moment of intensity where we were concerned about protecting our source, basically. And so we felt, and he wanted it to come out as well. And we felt we had to just get it out quickly. And we did go to Politico. Politico was interested in it, but they couldn't get it out as quickly as we felt it had to come out. And so that's why we went to a publication called The Debrief, because they were able to turn the story around quickly.
Ranking members and congressmen, thank you. I'm happy to be here. This is an important issue, and I'm grateful for your time. My name is David Charles Grush. I was an intelligence officer for 14 years, both in the U.S. Air Force, both active duty, Air National Guard, and Reserve, at the rank of major, and most recently from 2021 to 2023, at the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, NGA, at the GS-15 civilian level, which is the military equivalent of a full bird colonel. I was my agency's co-lead in unidentified anomalous phenomena and transmedium object analysis, as well as reporting to the UAP task force, UAPTF, and eventually, once it was established, the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, AARO. I became a whistleblower through a PPD-19 urgent concern filing in May 2022 with the Intelligence Community Inspector General. Following concerning reports from multiple esteemed and credentialed current and former military and intelligence community individuals that the U.S. government is operating with secrecy above congressional oversight with regards to UAPs. My testimony is based on information I've been given by individuals with a long-standing track record of legitimacy and service to this country, many of whom also have shared compelling evidence in the form of photography, official documentation, and classified oral testimony to myself and my various colleagues. I have taken every step I can to corroborate this evidence over a period of 4 years while I was with the UAP task force, and do my due diligence on the individual sharing it. This is because of these steps, I believe strongly in the importance of bringing this information before you. I am driven by a commitment of both to truth and transparency, rooted in our inherent duty to uphold the United States Constitution and protect the American people. I'm asking Congress to hold our government to this standard and thoroughly investigate these claims. But as I stand here under oath now, I am speaking to the facts as I've been told them. In the U.S. Air Force, in my National Reconnaissance Office, NRO, reservist capacity, I was a member of the UAP Task Force from 2019 to 2021. I served at the NRO Operations Center on the Director's Briefing staff, which included the coordination of the Presidential Daily Brief and supporting a variety of contingency operations, which I was the Reserve Intelligence Division Chief backup. In 2019, the UAP Task Force Director asked me to identify all special access programs and controlled access programs, also known as SAPs and CAPs, we needed to satisfy our congressionally mandated mission, and we were direct report at the time to the DepSecDef. At the time, due to my extensive executive level intelligence support duties, I was cleared to literally all relevant compartments and in a position of extreme trust, both in my military and civilian capacities. I was informed in the course of my official duties of a multi-decade UAP crash retrieval and reverse engineering program, to which I was denied access to those additional read-ons when I requested it. I made the decision, based on the data I collected, to report this information to my superiors and multiple inspectors general, and in effect becoming a whistleblower. As you know, I've suffered retaliation for my decision, but I am hopeful that my actions will ultimately lead to a positive outcome of increased transparency. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer your questions.
Greetings, Chairwoman Mace, Chairman Grothman, Ranking Members Connolly and Garcia, and members of the committee. It is my honor and privilege to testify before you on the issue of unidentified anomalous phenomenon, formerly known as UFOs. On behalf of our brave men and women in uniform and across the intelligence community, as well as my fellow Americans who have awaited this day, thank you for your leadership on this important matter. Let me be clear, UAP are real. Advanced technologies not made by our government or any other government are monitoring sensitive military installations around the globe. Furthermore, the U.S. is in possession of UAP technologies, as are some of our adversaries. I believe we are in the midst of a multi-decade secretive arms race, one funded by misallocated taxpayer dollars and hidden from our elected representatives and oversight bodies. For many years, I was entrusted with protecting some of our nation's most sensitive programs. In my last position, I managed a special access program on behalf of the White House and the National Security Council. As such, I appreciate the need to protect certain sensitive intelligence and military information. I consider my oath to protect secrets as sacred, and I will always put the safety of the American people first. With that said, I also understand the consequences of excessive secrecy and stovepiping. Nowhere was this more apparent than in the aftermath of 9/11, which many of us remember all too well. I believe that America's greatness depends on three elements: A, a watchful Congress, B, a responsive executive branch, and C, an informed public. Over the last decade and a half, I learned that certain UAP programs were and are operating without any of these elements. Although much of my government work on the UAP subject still remains classified, excessive secrecy has led to grave misdeeds against loyal civil servants, military personnel, and the public, all to hide the fact that we are not alone in the cosmos. A small cadre within our own government involved in the UAP topic has created a culture of suppression and intimidation that I've personally been victim to, along with many of my former colleagues. This includes unwarranted criminal investigations, harassment, and efforts to destroy one's credibility. Most Americans would be shocked to learn that the Pentagon's very own Public Affairs Office openly employs a professional psychological operations officer as the singular point of contact for any UAP-related inquiries from citizens and the media. This is unacceptable. Many of my former colleagues and I have provided classified testimony to both the Department of Defense and the Intelligence Community Inspector General, and many of us have subsequently been targeted by this cabal with threats to our careers, our security clearances, and even our lives. This is not hyperbole, but a genuine fact, and this is wrong. To fix these problems, I propose three principal actions. First, Congress and the President should create a single point of contact responsible for a whole-of-government approach to the UAP issue. Currently, the White House, CIA, NASA, the Pentagon, Department of Energy, and others play a role, but no one seems to be in charge, leading to unchecked power and corruption. Second, we need a national UAP strategy that will promote transparency and help restore the American public's trust at a time when the public's trust is at an all-time low. This strategy should include a whole-of-government approach, including the academic and scientific communities, the private sector, and our international partners and allies. Third, Congress should create a protected environment so whistleblowers desperate to do the right thing can come forward without fear. As it currently stands, these whistleblowers suffer because of stigma, a code of silence, and concerns about retaliation. These whistleblowers should be encouraged to come forward in ways that protect them against any forms of retaliation. Policies and procedures should ensure that protection, and for those who refuse to cooperate, it is up to the members of this committee and the other lawmakers to wield their subpoena power against hostile witnesses and prevent additional government funding to those UAP efforts that remain hidden from congressional oversight. In closing, we as Americans have never been afraid of a challenge. In fact, we thrive on them, whether it's eradicating polio or going to the moon. We don't run from a challenge, we take it head on. To the incoming administration and Congress, I say to you, we need immediate public transparency.
Shame on you, Washington Post. Shame on you, New York Times. Shame on you. And I'm sorry. I understand the stigma and like how you need to verify more, but literally a person's life was at risk and you were too scared. You were too scared because they had Carl Nell. They had the Inspector General, I apologize, I forget the name, the one that was the attorney that was representing Rush too, who's just a former IG. And the Inspector General said credible and urgent. And you, Washington Post, you, New York Times, you dropped the ball and they had to go to the debrief? Honestly, I do think we need to give some credibility to names, man, and to people and with reputations, and it bothers me. Now David Grush is getting hired by Eric Burleson, which is interesting, and let's see where that goes. I don't know, but, you know, who? Because guess what? Even these people are getting intimidated too. And the CIA and Congress and staffers, all of those people are getting intimidated too. Anyway, let's move on.
Flag was being put in their folders, citing them as a security risk, so that if they sought employment with like an aerospace company or something, the Air Force would have designated them to be security risks.
We will interview 2 of these witnesses with mind-blowing stories directly in this episode, and you can be the judge. One was threatened repeatedly, and his records were deleted from Vandenberg Air Force Base.
They threatened my life. You're going down, motherfucker, means to me, we're going to kill you. They denied there was ever a Robert Jacobs in the Air Force.
He gets a phone call one night. He and his wife come home from a movie. The phone rings. The voice says, "Your mailbox alight, what a beautiful sight. You're going down, motherfucker."
Shout out to Robert Jacobs. 1964, amazing case, UFOs and nukes. Anybody should read that. That's UFO literature 101. Probably the first book I'd recommend 100% for anybody starting with this topic. Anyway, so thank you, Robert Jacobs, and all the witnesses who've come forward. Honestly, thank you so much. And I want to know what solutions, if anybody sees this, y'all think we can do. And I hope that behind the scenes this is getting taken seriously and you have some sort of protection, but it seems like there's not. And I wonder how many people haven't gone public because they don't want to deal with being public. They don't want to deal with whatever comes with that, and they're at high risk, and that does concern me a lot. So just want to say thank you to all of y'all who've come forward, who've been in danger. Now let's get to the recent whistleblower, Jake Barber, the boogeyman. That's what he says. He says he's the boogeyman, and you know what? I would not want to fight that guy. And the truth is, I think he's a badass, even though I'm kind of skeptical of his claims. There's no way I'm gonna be like, dude, I'm not gonna take you seriously. No, I have to. But I'm very uncomfortable with the psionic aspects of this, and the love and light, and the feminine. I think they're real. I don't know how to deal with it personally, but I'm not gonna get into my therapy class here. So let's just keep it to the point. Look at this, how they were rushing, right, to get Jake Barber's story out. And then we're gonna go talk about defense contractors and the government.
Exactly. This is super dangerous for him right now. Like, right now we're in a limbo because the story is supposed to break out on News Nation, hopefully this week. And every day that it doesn't go live, there's more danger in his life.
I think from an American national security standpoint, if you have these different fiefdoms where the left hand isn't talking to the right hand, you have over compartmentalization.
Yeah.
You have all this knowledge locked up in these disparate pockets, and you're competing with China and Russia, that it's actually maladaptive from a national security standpoint. So is somebody in authority saying, I see this Jake guy, he's actually acting in the best interest of the country, let's protect him.
Yes.
In order to come out.
Yeah, and now that takes us to Congress, because when I went to the director of security and realized he didn't have my back, I realized I couldn't trust my nebulous network anymore. Then I was at a loss, and I was left with the one like emergency button that I always thought I had, and I punched it. And that was to go to Congress, to go to the Senate Intelligence Committee, and go to the monitor for CIA and spill my guts and go, help me, help me, help me. This is what's happened. Like, help. That was probably one of the most discouraging experiences of my life, because within minutes of being there and asking for help, they were begging for my help.
Interesting. Like they didn't understand what was going on. They had no handle on it.
No, they were being bullied and being harassed at their homes, and were scared for their life, and wanted me to set up a personal protection detail to help protect them. And I was like, fine, fuck. I guess this is where we're going with it.
Are there rumors? Because the long-standing rumors are that this is run by the CIA. That in '52 you had public-facing UFO research in the form of Blue Book, this sort of public relations effort, cleave off from the more vital organization actually studying this stuff, and that was the CIA's Office of Scientific Intelligence in collaboration with Battelle Memorial Institute, the Atomic Energy Commission, and then even up until today, you have Chris Sharp writing a great article for the Liberation Times. He's talking about kind of the chain of command for the UFO program, and he cites Glenn Gaffney as the CIA's Director of Science and Technology as being kind of one of the primary gatekeepers of the legacy UFO program. So when you go to them and you say, all this crazy stuff is happening and it's super disorganized and it's, kind of unethical, they're really just completely unaware?
You mean Congress?
No, I mean the CIA.
CIA, so what's happening is there are multiple programs and multiple cover-ups happening all at the same time.
So yeah, this is a serious topic, guys, and nothing. We got to take it seriously. But hey, I'm gonna add one last clip I found from Representative Luna, since Take Barber's story involves JSOC and a private military contractor over a crash retrieval, and allegedly people were killed. It's a story. We don't know a lot of details. It's supposed to be an investigation. Take Barber went to Senate Intelligence, Congress, and the IG, and apparently they got intimidated. So what the heck is that? Seriously, we gotta get to the bottom of it and take it seriously. But hey, like I said, I'm gonna leave you with this clip that I found over 10 months ago. I think it was like almost a year ago, about Luna questioning the Secretary of the Department of Energy. And I think it's very interesting. Y'all have a good one.
Secretary Granholm, earlier when Representative Burchett asked you about some UAP stuff, you said that the DoD essentially had denied any existence of that, and you referred to them as drones, correct?
It's my understanding that the Department of Defense has looked at this and issued a report about it.
I have a lot of questions, so just quick and concise if possible. There have been persistent claims and reports, including those from credible whistleblowers to this committee, suggesting that the U.S. government, potentially including the Department of Energy, has been involved in reverse engineering technologies recovered from UAP. For example, the Pentagon's proposed Kona Blue program aimed at reverse engineering such technologies, although it was ultimately not established. Can you clarify whether the Department of Energy has been involved in any such efforts, or, either historically or currently, to analyze reverse engineering materials from related to UAPs?
I have no knowledge of that.
Okay, there are several reports indicated frequent drone incursions over DOE nuclear facilities, including an incident on April 1st, 2021 at Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory, also known as LLNL. Can you detail the DOE's current security measures to prevent unauthorized drone activities or UAPs, and what steps are being taken to enhance these measures of frequencies of incidences?
Yeah, we have a whole counter drone effort to make sure that all of our national security sites and our labs are protected from incursions from drones, I'll just say, that are not authorized. So there's a whole series of protocols, probably not ripe for discussion in this public setting.
Correct. So I reviewed some unclassified materials from around the 40s and 50s, and so they weren't just being reported as drones back then, and I encourage you to look over those materials because I think that you guys should be upgrading that program to cover down on UAPs. There have been documented sightings of metallic spheres over DOE facilities, if you want to call them drones in this instance, such as one report on April 30th, 2019 over LLNL. What investigations have been conducted in regards to these sightings, and what conclusions do you guys have about the nature and origins of these objects?
I'm happy to follow up with you on that.
Okay, we'll be submitting also too for public record some questions after this, if you could please answer those. Considering the DOE's involvement in nuclear and sensitive research facilities, how does the DOE coordinate with agencies like the Department of Defense and AARO to investigate UAP sightings?
We obviously are teamed with the Department of Defense because of our national security and nuclear mission.
Are you able to cite any specific investigations or shared data analysis efforts?
I don't have information on that.
Okay. As of right now, again, we'll be submitting some questions for you after this, but I hope that you guys can answer those in a timely fashion. And again, for those that might be tuning into this, I would encourage you to look at some of those unclassified materials, and we'll be happy to provide your office with that. I'll just follow up by one other question, I guess, to close it out. Does the DOE currently work with JSOC in order to handle security measures?
We work with all of the security entities around the federal government. We're part of an overall all-of-government effort on both cyber as well as national security.
Do you guys work with JSOC? Yes or no?
Yes, we do.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, ma'am. I yield the rest of my time, Chairman.